Adopt the agenda. Only change we got is the change, we had the wrong bid in there, right? That's the only thing we had. So council, at some point you got an email with, we had the wrong tuck point bid in there. So, there's a motion to approve the agenda with the, with that change is all it is. To put the correct one in.
Do you want to add her for public participation?
Yeah, that's fine. We have Mary signed up as well. I had her on there too, so.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Is there anybody else that wanted to sign up for public participation before we do this? Okay. So Adam made the motion to accept the agenda with the change and addition of Mary Tominski on public participation.
Support.
Second by Travis. Further discussion, council? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so first signed up for public participation tonight, we have Pat Cassingham's going to give us a update on IROC. Good evening, Pat, if you could come up to the mic, please.
Good evening.
Pat Cassingham here representing IROC. So here to update, I guess, on, well, there's still a lot of snow out there. We're still hoping to have, we have a race planned for 22nd of May. We're pushing forward, hoping that that will still happen. Right now, it's still up in the air, there's still a lot of snow out there, so but we're making all preparations for it, it'll go ahead. So that's kind of what that is at, and we have the high school race in October, and that'll go just like it did last year. And hoping for a good season, I guess. Any questions from the council with regards to the race that's coming up or anything like that?
Council, anything for Pat?
I guess I just have a few questions for Mayor.
Yep, good.
I know it's in our packet on page 184. It says the city requires a permit to process the events. Is there a cost to have these events? I mean, do they have to pay for that since it is a city?
No, so
Owned?
in order, I'm sorry, if you might. So we have $100 refundable deposit for any incidentals or stuff like that.
Okay.
So to use the park, it's not a refundable deposit for any incidentals or stuff like that.
Okay.
So to use the park, it's not a charge, it's just like using any other city park. But if there's additional city, services that are needed, then there could be a charge attached to that. You know, if they need barricades or cones or garbages or stuff like that, then those could be, would be an additional charge, but.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
April, there had been a little bit of talk that there is a potential, if there's some type of restoring back to prior event conditions, that might be a legitimate expense you could ask for. But you can't charge for, say, to use the park. But if for some reason they just tore it up and it costs us all kinds of money to maybe restore it, there might be a legitimate answer to have that discussion or question, so. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Dave, thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Guys are doing a great job out there. All right, next we have Mary Tominski signed up. Good evening.
Many of you may know I filed a complaint with Cloud Minneapolis. It's the organization that investigates HRA organizations. I commented on the Facebook postings when Longer Terrace had issues last December and eventually ended up flooding because of the frozen pipes. Mayor Champa had blamed the residents for the situation in the building with the HRA, and I did comment it's not the residents' fault. This problem is with management, both past, current, and his comments and remarks on January 12th city council minutes are good examples of his misplaced blame. In my communications with the mayor, I wondered why he was so defensive of current executive townhomes behind the Lincoln School had no heat. I again wrote to the mayor because he told me he was responsible for bringing Culleton to the HRA, and it seemed he is never available. This time he did not respond to my email. This is what prompted my curiosity about why Mayor Champa is so defensive of the director and continues to blame the residents and always insists the city and HRA are two separate entities, separate boards, other than appointing the HRA board has no other relationship with the board. I contacted the city of Grand Rapids where the current director came from after what Mayor Champa described as a brief retirement. I asked them where I could find copies of their HRA minutes, and since the Grand Rapids HRA is now under Itasca County, the minutes were no longer available on their webpage. It's interesting that the Chisholm HRA board minutes are not on their webpage or very difficult to get copies of. They told me I could come to their office to review the minutes, but because of some technical difficulty, they decided to email me the minutes, all 20 years of them. Because of my findings from the Grand Rapids HRA minutes, I started reviewing the Chisholm City Council minutes. I did email several items to each city council with some of the information I felt was important for you to be aware of. Because I know my time is limited here, I have put together items for you to review that consist of Minnesota statutes, which I'm going to mention parts of briefly. So Minnesota Statute 469.01 describes the purpose of the HRA is to provide a sufficient supply of adequate, safe, and sanitary dwellings in order to protect the health, safety, morals, and welfare of the citizen of the state. Minnesota Statute 469.002 is entitled Definition. Subdivision 5 describes the governing body, meaning the city council. Subdivision 6 describes the mayor as the mayor of the city. Statute 469.003, subdivision 6 appoints approval term vacancy. The commissioner shall be appointed by the mayor with approval of the governing body. Any member of the governing body of a city may be appointed and may serve as a commissioner of the authority for the city. It does not state the mayor can be as a commissioner as our mayor does. When I was looking at the minutes that approved Mayor Champa to be on the HRA board, I did not immediately find them where he had been approved by the city council. Last week after the mayor said there was a resolution approving him to be on the board, I emailed the city administrator and asked for a copy of that resolution. Margaret sent me the necessary release form, and once I returned it, she sent me the resolution. So resolution number 012221-12 was listed as a blanket resolution and voted on instead of each line item. Approvals like this had been done in the past where you do the line items instead of a blanket. So when I was looking through the minutes, unless you were at the meeting on January 13th, you would not know what the resolution even was, and being at the meeting, not even having given you that information. And if you have any questions, just holler, because I wrote this up ahead of time so I wouldn't lose my train of thought. The way this was done almost looked like somebody was trying to hide something. Statute 473.195, Housing and Redevelopment Authority Powers, Subdivision 5. For the purpose of exercising the authority granted to it under this section, the council, at its sole discretion, established within the council's organization structure a separate governing body to which the council may delegate any and all authority granted to the council under this section. The resolution establishing the separate governing body must set out the powers and duties delegated to the separate governing body, prescribe the number, qualifications, and terms of its members, provide for any other terms and conditions that are deemed appropriate by the council. I did message Margaret and asked her for a copy of this resolution if indeed one did exist. I did not hear back, so I'm assuming that there is no such resolution. In reviewing the city council minutes, I found the council approves and votes on most resolutions, appointments to boards, resignations, except for the former director, Bakari. There was no resignation letter for him or that it was voted on and accepted by the council. the current executive director's employment or the extension of his contract for other HRA employees also. I have read the city council minutes from 2017 to 2022. Section 1, the HRA bylaws from the organization meeting of January 20th, 22. Section 1, board and rule compensate. The board is responsible for overall policy and direction of the authority and delegates responsibility of the day-to-day operations to the staff under the direction of the executive director. Section number 7 addresses conflict of interest policy. The authority will adopt a conflict of interest policy. Of members of the board must sign the document on an annual basis. Copy shall be with the executive director. No policy was with the bylaws. In the city council meetings on July 8th, 2020, Mayor Chomper reported the HRA extended Jerry Culleton's contract for 2 years at $86,000 per year. Unless the council did a resolution to grant the power to the HRA board, that was not something that they were able to do. The HRA does not have the authority to do this in a direct violation of the conflict of interest policy because since they are supervised by the executive director, they cannot vote on whether his contract should be extended or not extended. That is a direct violation of conflict of interest. And then I only have one more item to address here tonight, and it's the Code of Conduct and Statement of Value Policies from the City Council minutes of 2/13/2019. The City of Chisholm expressly provides that it shall not permit or tolerate any harassing statements, intimidating or bullying conduct. It shall be the policy and requirement that all persons who represent the City of Chisholm in any capacity shall do so in a respect and appropriate manner. Any conduct, whether it be speech or actions, which shall create or promote a hostile or harassing atmosphere is expressly prohibited. So I have a question for anybody who was at the HRA meeting last Thursday. Do you feel that this policy was violated? And I expect that answer from Brian Lindsay.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
There was some conversation that got a little bit sharp at the previous HRA meeting. I wouldn't say that it was a full violation of the policy, but there was some heated debate or some heated conversation. And as long as I'm speaking, there is an enabling resolution that was passed. It took a lot of digging to access, but it was actually the City Council passed the enabling resolution February 8th, 1949. And so it took a while to dig that up.
I do have copies of all these documents from the city council members, and I'll give them to you. Just pass them down.
Thank you.
It is my understanding that God is doing an investigation. All of these documents and more have been sent down to them for their review. And I expect we'll be hearing from them before too long. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Brian, give me, obviously there's a lot to absorb there.
Mm-hmm.
What is the relationship, I mean, in your opinion, what is the relationship between the HRA and the City of Chisholm?
Thank you, Mayor. So the relationship between the HRA and the City of Chisholm it's an interesting one. As far as a direct relationship, there's the main connection is this. In 1949, the City of Chisholm spun off essentially the HRA. The city delegated to the HRA that operates within Chisholm right now a function that otherwise would be reserved to the city. And so at this point, the primary connection between the Chisholm City Council and the HRA is that the council appoints the members to the board that serve on the HRA. The HRA, though, through its delegation from 1949, has been given the authority to take care of its own internal operations. For example, the HRA internally does its own hiring and personnel management. They create their own budgets. They act independently of the city council. The only time the city council would be asked to make any sort of an action on behalf of the HRA is if there was a major project undertaken in the city because of the overarching responsibility of delivering that service, which has been delegated to the HRA, is required to or asked to insure or guarantee bonds or other financing. But in all other respects, the HRA operates itself internally and takes care of its own affairs.
Okay. Mary, I'm gonna just respond to one comment. The one about Longyear freezing up. It was clearly sabotage in a secure facility. The doors were propped open, the heaters were all turned off.
And that also is a management issue. You can't blame the residents that live there. It's the management that is not doing their job, because if they were doing their job the way they should be doing their job, you wouldn't be having the problems that you have.
Let me go a little bit further. I was busy that day, and I got a call after 3 hours. People were on Facebook for 3 hours complaining about how the HRA wasn't doing their job, they're letting it freeze up. You know what I did? I called up the emergency number of the Chisholm HRA. Nobody, zero, had called. Nobody. When I called and talked to Santa, she was the first one. Adam got there before they got a call, because he read it on Facebook. They hadn't got a call. You know who they got the call from? Was me. And then when Santa went in on Monday morning and checked the voicemail just to see if somebody left on there, zero. Nobody called except me. And they let it, and that was like 4 hours after somebody was complaining on Facebook. Zero
Why
calls.
is the executive director never available, and why does Santa always?
We have a person on call every weekend. We have an emergency number. The director can allocate that to whoever he wants. That's his job. The director doesn't do the work. He's got people that do it. He's got maintenance people. They take the calls. We have somebody 24 hours a day taking a call. You know, you should be proud of the HRA. When I got there, you've seen the pictures. They've been posted all over Facebook. When I got there, the buildings were falling apart. The previous directors hadn't put any money into them. They would rather fix a sidewalk than a roof. We fixed, give me a minute, all right? I got in there in February of 2019, and yes, the council did appoint me all 4 years. Nobody else wants to serve on it. I wonder why. I got in there in February 2019. I immediately determined that the director was way over his head. Our money was going like this, and they had no plan to fix that facility. By June, the director read the writing on the wall and left. He left. The administrator assistant left. They quit. You can shake your head.
It wasn't in June.
We hired Jerry in July. It had to be June. What, May 31st? Sorry, I'm off a day, okay? I'm going from memory.
So inappropriately. If you want my opinion, I can definitely give
No,
it.
I don't want your opinion. I'm gonna finish,
Show
I'm
current pictures
gonna
of the
fin-
conditions
I'm
of
gonna
the
finish
building.
my story, all right? All right, the director left, all right? The director left. I did bring in Jerry Culleton. I looked for a director. We had no director, no administrative assistant, nobody to even answer the phone. We brought him in. From that day on, go look at the buildings. Ask them for a tour. The buildings are beautiful. I just posted pictures the Lincoln, the people are thrilled to live there. Longyear, beautiful building. We contracted with Architectural Resources. We have a 10-year plan for all the repairs that need to be done at the buildings. We went up to Nelson Addition. We looked, the rents were never raised. They had no plan on how they were going to fix these buildings up after they were paid for. I'm proud of what they did there. Whether you agree or not, I'm proud of what we're doing there. Not only that, we have money in the bank. Longyear's getting a new roof this year. We're worried about elevators now. We've applied for grants. CDBG, federal government, we redid to protect our staff for COVID. We fixed that. We have a $200,000 grant we're approved for to redo these buildings up here. And we have another $200,000 grant that we're waiting to see if we get it in June. The last two directors never applied for a grant. The last two directors. You mentioned a computer in your letter that went to HUD. You know which director left with the computer? Vakari. Before Warpla. Before me. If you want to know about the computer, we should ask the council rep that was on the council when it happened, Kevin Skaya. That's who was on the board. If you want to know why the HRA was just about ready to go bankrupt when I arrived, why don't we ask the previous council and the previous board? That's why I'm saying I'm proud of what they did up there. It's going great right now. We have a lot of work to do yet, but it's going just fine.
You once told me in your email that you thought there were people in the city of Chisholm who would like to see the HRA fail. And I told you there's nothing more that I would like to see than the HRA to succeed. But I think the way you're doing things, you're pushing the HRA to fail. And I'm glad that HUD is doing an investigation. And I hope that once their investigation is done, that a new executive director can come into play here and turn things the way they should be.
If I may, briefly?
Yes.
So we all got your emails, and I appreciate that. I didn't put much faith into the Facebook post from Longyear. I was actually, my name was brought up a number of times in there, Councilor Bach, Mayor Champa, same thing. I went there, I went there, I walked right in, because the door was there, it was open, it was propped open. The back doors on the side were propped open, all the heaters were turned off. It took, all my strength to turn them back on. It was somebody shut them off. The windows were open, they were actually frozen open. So I mean, there's that building there, somebody purposely did that. And I don't think it was management. The question I would have is, are there cameras in there where they did not pick anything up? But I don't think that was management. Then with the other, with the heat going out at the townhouses, I did get some feedback. I did have people reach out to me, which made me actually want to respond. We had gotten your letters. I did write a letter. I did go down to the board. The mayor's always been very open to let any of us, whether he agrees with us or not, to investigate or search out and try to get answers. I think there are things that, it does open the door for questions to be asked, but then we have to be ready for the answers to come also. As far as the director and the way it's heading, I think, it does take, I've told Heather this a long time, it takes a long time to see change, and actually, we all see it here. If you try to do something on the EDA, it takes a long time to make transition and change. So I won't be right there to say that this is failing and it's heading towards failure. I think it is on its right path. I did go to the HRA board. I did say that they should investigate as far as what they, research the contract and the job description and what they should expect from the director. It was my opinion that I understood it that the director was brought in temporarily. Maybe not. He's working out. He is or he isn't. That's for the board. They need to ask themselves that. But in my opinion, when someone is brought in to, headhunted, sometimes they don't leave on their own, so when the contracts are up, maybe it's time to go a different route. That's always hard for some people, it creates controversy, conflict, but, that's just my opinion. I brought it to the HRA, I talked, I asked questions, I shared my feelings, and they rebutted with what they feel. From there, I can't go much further than that. And I don't disagree with what I've said, or what they've said to me. I trust Mayor Champa. 4 years on this, he's led us, really down a good path. He's helped us keep us together. So I wouldn't say that he's done anything inappropriate. And I know there's people that disagree with me.
But he told me that the HRA out was almost in bankrupt, and if it was almost in bankrupt, why wasn't it investigated? And did he do a background check on Gary Culleton before he hired him?
I can't speak to it. But, maybe it was a poor choice of words that we kind of talked about the last HRA meeting. I would say, did it come to the council to approve the 2-year contract extension? I thought it did after,
No, it did not.
but maybe I'm mistaken.
It doesn't have to.
Yeah, okay.
And we don't have to,
Statutes it does, unless council gave authority.
Which they did,
the HRA board.
which they did.
In the resolution, where is the resolution?
Yep, the resolution, we were just able to dig it up within the last, I don't know, 24 hours or so. It took a lot of digging to get back to 1949.
I don't believe the 1949 resolution applies here, and that will be clarified with the investigation.
Thank you.
So you're telling me the resolution from 1949, anytime we have new employees or new committee members, you revise that resolution to affect the name of those people and what their duties are?
No, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. No, just for clarification, what the enabling, I always refer to it as an enabling resolution. It's a one-time event where the city has to declare that there's a need for an HRA to be established, and it's basically, it gives the authority to the organization to discharge that obligation that's contained within the statutory series. And so in this instance, and in the instance of all county and all municipal HRAs, the enabling resolution occurs one time, and it authorizes them to exercise the statutory authorities on behalf of the city and in place of the city, and that inherently covers their ability to make those internal decisions. And so the enabling resolution from 1949 maybe is a little bit different than is required by the laws today, but once it's affected, it creates the HRA then that can continue to operate, and you don't have to go back and continue to make new enabling resolutions. The one will suffice to give it the legal authority to come into existence.
So you're saying that these statutes that I just read off have no meaning to them whatsoever?
No,
Define the council as the governing board.
correct, unless that authority is delegated into an HRA, which is what has happened here.
Well, I don't believe you, Brian, I'm sorry. I don't believe the mayor, but I will believe the investigation that will be done.
Yep, and then we'll move on.
Okay, regarding the contract extension for Mr. Culleton, there was a rumor going around that he received a significant raise with that. I think the number $17,000 was mentioned. With that contract extension, was he given a very large raise?
No, he's paid $86,000 a year.
But was that from the start?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so that rumor was not true? That he was not given a large raise? Okay.
No, but his employment contract looks pretty shaky.
All right, so we'll move on. Thank you all for coming tonight. Council reports, start on the left today.
Good evening. So yeah, as you heard, I did attend the HRA meeting last week where I shared my views from an outside perspective with information that I had gotten from some of the citizens in town and board member. Last Thursday, I attended a Rams town hall that they put on to address the EMS services in Minnesota, where our EMS director, Jess Davis, was a panelist. So thank you very much for that, Jess. And we had a school board meeting a week and a half ago where they talked about the future of the school and some directions that it could take. And very exciting, lots of information to bring in there. So if anybody out there is not abreast of what's going on, I suggest that you do look into it. So other than that, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Cheyenne, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. No report.
Travis, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. Just a small report. Tomorrow we have a fundraiser for the splash pad for Kiwanis. It is a pasta fundraiser at Valentini's. So if you have a craving for pasta for lunch or dinner, please do support the Kiwanis Club. That splash pad is going to be pretty amazing when it gets put in. The goal is next summer, I believe, is when we're going to start construction. The goal, assuming we raise enough money. Aside from that, I was at the same school meeting at Valentini's that Adam was at, talking about the direction of the school. I'd like to give kudos to Adrian, the superintendent, for taken the initiative to realize that his school buildings are failing and something needs to be done there. So I do appreciate that, and again, thank you all for coming and sharing your thoughts with us today. That's all I have.
Thank you, Travis. April, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, everybody. I want to say Happy Mother's Day coming up to all the mothers and women out there. Valentini's has a buffet going on May 8th from 10:30 to 2. So we'll support our local businesses if you can. I don't know if you guys know this, but they were actually looking for extras for the filming at the curling club this past week. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if anybody participated in that, but that'll be neat to see the film when that comes out. Also, United Way is asking if anybody out there knows a Vietnam War veteran who would like to be honored this June, because this June we are going to have the Wall That Heals in Chisholm at the football field. So I think that's wonderful. I don't know if you guys heard of Rob Fairbanks, but he's coming back. He's the Res Reporter comedian. He'll be at the Chisholm High School auditorium on May 5th at 2:25. That's an odd time to start, but
I think his first performance is for the kids, and then he's doing a public one that night, I think.
okay.
I could be wrong on that.
I'm just reading 4 p.m. at, sorry, thank you,
Yeah.
Counselor. 4 p.m. at Vima Multicultural Community Center. He'll be there at 4 p.m. And that's downtown.
Yep.
All right. And then Chisholm All School Art Show is coming on May 4th at the Chisholm High School. And that's all I have. Thank you.
April, is he the guy that when he first started out, it's like, oh, it's cold out here. He's out on some lake somewhere. That's him, eh?
Yeah.
Thank you. Marty, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. I attended the local Board of Appeals Equalization meeting and working session last week, and also attended the 5th Street Southeast public meeting last week at the Senior Center. And that's all I have for reporting.
Thank you. Report. Administrative Assistant Day today. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Rachel. We're going to miss you when you retire. I don't think you can say this enough with graduation coming up, proms and everything. Please remind everybody, just be careful. Just be careful. Everybody's having a good time and you forget to be careful. So, Senator Klobuchar came up. I hope I'm not raining on your parade. She came up to do a little photo op with us. As you know, she got us $3.5 million towards public safety buildings, so that's a great thing. It was nice to have her come up, and she actually, her greatest fan is a bartender at Tom and Jerry's, and I said, Senator, could you do me a favor? Could you stop down at Tom and Jerry's and say hi to Betsy? And she said, I gotta go. So she did go down there. So that was kind of cute. I stopped down after, and everybody had selfies with the senator. And then, last thing, I don't want to, I'm sure Vern's going to mention this in his report, but, the events of last week, when you're trying to apprehend a suspect, the last thing you want is for your officers to get hurt. Probably the second thing you don't want is to end up in a situation like we did where the suspect ends up dead. But unfortunately, sometimes you're given no choice. And, with that said, our people are coming home safe, and that's a choice that has to be made sometime. So, not a lot you can do sometimes. So, terrible tragedy there. Obviously, an individual that needed help, and it's too bad it ended that way. All right, anything else, Council, before we move on to our department heads? I think we got our ambulance director here tonight, don't we? Good evening. Welcome.
And my apologies for
Overall, everything continues to do very well with the departments, so that's great news. And thank you, Council Lance. It's been such a busy week, I did forget about the Rams meeting. It went very well. It was discussing rural ambulances and the difficulties that we're having in the area, and brought together a panel of directors and chiefs that kind of had a good Q&A for everybody, as well as discussing some potential options and some various solutions that we could come up with. And more good news, I have a batch of emergency medical responders at EMRs that finished up their final hands-on training and took their psychomotor skills testing. Next step is going to be taking their written test, at which point, upon successful completion, they will get their EMT certifications and we can start the on-the-job training. So, forward progression, that's awesome. We've got an awesome crew. Speaking of, this afternoon we actually just finished 2 rescue operations. So, worried I was going to be a little bit late here. Great work, pulling together multiple crews to do some pretty extenuating circumstance work. And additionally, I'd like to also publicly thank our partners with Evergreen Fire Department, Virginia Fire Department, and Hibbing Fire Departments, as well as Aero Medical, that all helped us come together and get these patients taken care of. Let me see. Am I forgetting? I don't think I've done anything. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Council, anything for Jess?
Just quick, the rescues. It's very important that we get a trailer for that side-by-side that we spent lots of money on, because we actually had to drive that down the highway about 12 miles so we could get out in the
Oh, really?
woods. Yeah.
And it absolutely made the difference in one of our rescues.
Yeah.
It's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Police chief?
I really don't have a formal report put together unless you have any questions.
Council, anything for the chief? I just, I said this to you before, but it's just very interesting when you have a tragedy like that, how all the different departments work together.
It's an excellent response by all the
Yeah,
departments.
I was listening to, like I said, some of the audio. Did anybody listen to the audio? The chief mentioned to me that they took all the pauses out. It seemed like it was just busy from the second it started, but they take the pauses out. But it's just interesting that when there was, somebody had fired a gun, that you heard the word buddy. They do what's called a buddy system. They gotta, like, quarantine everybody. They have to separate them for, so they're not talking to each other. And you go with another officer buddy, and they actually separated them all over. So, very interesting. And, this is a half a block from my house, and they're taping off. I don't know what's going on. I sent Vern a message. When you're available, could you at least let me know what's going on? And he gave me a little tidbit. But the next thing, I get a phone call from his office. It ain't him. It's the chief of police at Gilbert that says, "Oh, by the way, I'm your police chief today, and your 2 patrol officers are Hibbing police officers, and your officers are all, because of the officer-involved shooting, they're all quarantined." I was like, wow, this is kind of weird stuff. So, just interesting. So I gave you a report for you.
Next month.
Thank you for that, Vern. Building official, Mandy, report tonight?
No formal report is on the agenda.
Can't say anything for Mandy, that's not on the agenda. City engineer, Jim, report tonight?
Nothing now until I get to the agenda, then you'll get tired of me.
Can't say anything for Jim? Public Works, there's no way he doesn't have a report. Good evening, Larry.
Good evening, just a few things. Sorry, but I caught my ate a handful of peanuts and I feel like I hailed the skin zone, or whatever you call it. Anyway, sorry. Just a quick update, we got 17 out of 20 casuals, so we still have a little bit of room. If you're undecided or forgot, or maybe just didn't do it, so we get it. I'm well aware it's 2022 and things aren't as they used to be. The biggest thing I have for you is, besides what's in the packet, is the flags on the causeway. They do look very nice. Depending on who wrote the script for the movie, they could or could not be on the wrong side of the street. But it is a movie. They do look nice. So I opted to leave them up with your permission until we put up our regular flags for the season and do it in one shot instead of 2 shots. about 30 American, 30 Canadian flags up. Most of you have probably seen them throughout the day. Sounds okay?
Well, it doesn't make sense to go take them down if we're gonna be putting flags up shortly. It is interesting, I figured there'd be more people going, gee, what's going on here?
Well, there's plenty of people here.
They just don't get to me. I seen one comment like, geez, I hope they keep them up through the weekend. My relatives coming from Canada and would love to see this, so. Okay.
Yeah, good. Everyone good? Anything for me? We'll get the patch trailer back out tomorrow. I know that's potholes are always a concern in the spring, and we're working on it. So full crew back tomorrow.
Speaking quick about the incident last week and needing barricades and streets blocked off, and kudos to your crew for getting out there right away and helping out. Thank you.
Happy to help.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were just saying that you're gonna get out and fix the potholes and such, you know, with the, when we did it's not called mill and overlay, it's with the sand. What is that called, Jim?
Chip sealing,
Chip
crack
sealing.
sealing or something, I think they call it.
Within the alleys and stuff?
Oh, the
Are you
other
gonna-
thing.
That's
Reclamation, sorry.
Are you gonna be able to fill?
Yeah. Yeah, they're just so wet. If you see, they're just so wet. You gotta wait for the water to dissipate and dry up, and then we'll be able to level that and then regrade, and then we're gonna add material in the alleys as well. So
you
we'll
have to
regrade
wait till everything
Yeah,
dries
it's
up?
just like even in the mornings they're stiff. You know, it's like 19 degrees or something this morning. So they're like frosty and frozen. Maybe some of the deeper puddles are still puddles, but the other ones are even froze over. So we really need the Mother Nature to absorb that water, and then we can really work on it. So, like if you fill a hole now, you're just filling a hole. It'll be a hole in a week. So you have to regrade the hole out and then cover it. So.
That's good to know, thank you.
Yep. So like you can see where everyone's driving. So if you just stay over that little bit, it really does help. And there's room there. Yeah. So it's truly every year. So.
Can't get them to do it on the ATV trail.
No.
Everybody follows the same tire
Yeah.
track. Anything else for Larry Council? Thank you, Larry.
Thanks.
Tammy, our director report tonight, good evening.
Good evening, council. Just a real quick report. We conducted interviews for our summer rec aides. I gave 9 conditional offers. We are now accepting registrations for the summer rec program. Early registration, you get $10 off. Register early. And volleyball, we have registration open for that. Or if anybody wants to play butchie ball, give me a call. We have a lot of activities going on. Look at the website under Parks and Recreation, and you can see what you can join. All right, any questions of me?
Is the volleyball form online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
All right,
figured it
tell
was, but I had someone reach out and ask me. So.
Yeah. Just go under Parks and Recreation. Sometimes you go under Recreation, or go under Parks and Recreation, and those
Got it.
drop down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't believe we already got my registration in for my granddaughter. That's the first good deal my wife ever got on anything. She always waits for it to go up. All right, city attorney report tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. No formal report, but I am happy to field any questions the council may have.
Council, anything for the attorney? Clerk treasurer, good evening, Eileen. Any report tonight?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. No report tonight. Thank you.
Council, anything for Eileen? We want to drag her up to the podium for her? All right, we'll move on. Administrator Scrabble, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. I have a quick report from the library tonight. So just kind of what they've been up to. They had 2 school readiness field trips on March 28th. They had 15 students and their teachers visit the library. Took them on tour of the upstairs and then read books and did a craft with them. Then on April 20th, they had another 12 students and their teachers visit. They also had ECFE visits on April 5th and April 7th. With a total of 23 kids and 20 adults. They read books and did crafts. They're still doing their take and bake crafts since they started that during COVID for the curbside delivery, and they've been still very popular even though with the library being open. So in the month of March they did 98 kits, and in the month of April they gave away 90 kits so far. So they're going to plan on still doing the take and make crafts. And then their summer reading program, they're getting ready, busy planning for that, and that begins on June 6th. They'll also be resuming the weekly story times in June. So that's an update from the library today. And I think everybody else touched on everything that I was going to discuss already, so unless there's any questions for me.
Read beyond the beaten path.
It's nice to be last. Council, anything for Stephanie that she didn't mention or we didn't mention? All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. This is your list of bills that were in front of you when you showed up tonight. Communications, which are the Airport Authority minutes, Public Utility Commission minutes, minutes of the previous city council meeting, the April 13th, 2022 meeting, payroll and overtime. Could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion.
Thank you, Travis. Second for that.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Discussions, corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business, Vern. Number of gambling applications, page 9, council.
Mr. Mayor, before we begin this, my apologies, I probably should have said, being that the shooting is still under investigation, there's very little at this time that I can actually say or answer questions, so that's why I don't have a formal report on that. As that progresses, we can speak more about it, but that's kind of why the silence from the police department this time. But I would like to thank, and you're right, all the area, all the local area law enforcement comes together as a team and really put that together and really works cohesively, even though we don't train for those things, and even though the public works, coming out there and helping us EMS, everybody came to really, made me proud of what we were able to accomplish, so. But that's about as much as I can say this time, so. That's why I need more money with that. So, looking at some motions for the gambling applications, and I think we have to take these, Brian, all one at a time.
Individually.
Motions at one at a time. The first one is the $12,000 raffle to be held on June 29th of this year for the chamber.
Council motion to approve the gambling application for the Chamber of Commerce, June 29th raffle.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Drawing will take place at Choppy's, it looks like, 11 West Wake Street. Motion made by Councilor Fountain, seconded by Councilor Lance. Further discussion, council?
Just a comment on that. I'm on the chamber board. Normally, this is the half raffle, but the board decided to just do a full raffle. So there's no more, gonna be no more half raffle. There'll just be 2 full raffles going forward. And Choppy's is our newest member of the chamber, and that's why it's being held there.
Good.
Excellent.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
It's always nice to have new members
Yeah.
on there, so. The second one, of course, is the Chamber's, the supporting group for the Chisholm Community Foundation for their annual golf outing, and that raffle will be held on July 20th.
At Valentina's. Council motion to accept that, or approve that gambling application.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Travis. Second.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3.
Dr. Moonlight Graham Bingo on August 3rd, I believe that's at Valentina's.
Correct. Council motion to approve that gambling application.
Make that motion.
Thank you. April 2nd.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next one, we gotta jump all the way back to the Kids Plus one.
And the Kids Plus is generously being the support for Kiwanis Splash Pad project to be held. That's a $15,000 raffle to be held on September 7th for that great project up there that was sponsoring for the Splash Pad.
What, Travis, question for you. What do these things net? About like 25% is profit towards whatever they're doing, or is it not that much normally? You're doing like the
You
8,000.
mean the profit?
Yeah, the profit on the
They
raffle.
get probably 70, I don't know, 60%, I'd say, somewhere in
So
that
it's
Depends
pretty
on-
ballpark.
small.
You can all
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
anything to
Yeah.
half.
I know they give about $8,000 away right off the bat on a
Yeah.
lot of them, and then
Yeah,
it's
it might be
about
more than half.
1,500.
Might be more about half, now that I think about it. Depends on what the prize giveaway is, I guess, which I don't know what that is, so.
Well, this would be nice, that we, they're doing
Yeah,
the
I will
splash pad, they're moving forward on that
Yeah.
already, so.
I will say that if, after this raffle, we should have the amount of money that we need fundraised to purchase all of the equipment.
Oh, good.
So then the rest of the cost comes in to actually construct the splash pad. So, look for those tickets. They're I think it's 100 tickets, but I think they're $300 a ticket, that's my understanding.
Ooh.
So,
That's a big
that's
one.
my understanding. I haven't seen a proof yet, but I think that's the way that it worked. And some group did that previously, so it's not the first time that that's happened.
So
You
we
know,
need,
this town always opens up their wallets for a good
Yeah.
cause and.
Find your two buddies. Find your two buddies. Split it 3 ways.
then when you get drawn out, they can list all of you.
Yeah, there you go.
So we need a motion to approve that gambling application for 9/7/2022 and Valentini's for Chisholm Kids Plus.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Adam. Second.
Second.
Thank you, April. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to Mandy's item, short-term rental, second reading, so we can't make changes to it. But basically, it's a vote up or vote down at this point. Correct, Brian? Correct. Okay. Mandy, did you want to talk a little bit?
Just gone through a second reading for you, ordinance number 153.291 for the short-term rental ordinance. Once we approve this, we will be open tomorrow. If it is approved to take applications, and I have the applications all set in my office.
Okay. Council, I think we critiqued it at the last meeting. I think this is the draft we wanted, so I look for a motion to approve the second reading of the short-term rental ordinance 153.291. Brian, let's say we approve it tonight, we gotta put it in the newspaper, right? It's an ordinance,
Correct, it will
And
have,
it-
it will have to be published.
and then it's not live for like 10 days or something, or is it as soon as it's published?
After it's published, yes.
Okay.
It is currently published on the website, if anyone's interested.
Seen it is.
I'll make a motion to approve that ordinance number 153.291.
Thank you, Adam. Second for that.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion, council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
just as a reminder to the public, this is for people that live in the R1 and R2 residential districts. It applies to those areas of town only.
And commercial was already
Commercial
good,
is
right?
it's already an approved use in areas zoned for commercial business.
Yes.
Thank you, Marty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
Move on to Jim's items, ordinance number chapter 53. That seems kind of weird the way that's written. Ordinance chapter 53, public and private sewer, first reading.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I've got a handout coming to you that I'll go through in just a bit more detail as we try to quickly walk you through this. I hope my notes on your council packet kind of help you understand what's new, where it came from, and revisions that was being made. So, as you see, starting on page 37, the first 3 sections are from the League of Minnesota Model Ordinance. I'd like to just take a minute, if you
building sewer is that which is within or underneath the building, which really comes, I think, Mandy, under the building code, over which we have no jurisdiction directly. And then if you'll look at number 12, the sewer lateral, and as we go through this again, you'll see where I made that revision that quite often it referred to a building sewer, when in fact it should be the sewer lateral. The sewer lateral starts at the building foundation or exterior and goes clear out to the main. So it's both within our right of way and back on private property. I would like to note, continue on page 39, right in the middle of the page, the last sentence, just above 5312, you see that I've underlined it, and Mandy and I talked about this, I think with Larry as well. Originally it said if public sewer was within 10 feet. Well, from the property line to, well, what I'm getting at is the main could be 30 feet away, be in the center of the street, and we're not within 10 feet of the property line, so we just made it consistent to make that 100 feet just for clarification. And as you see, as you go through a lot of this, well, 53.13 is exactly what I was talking about previously, where originally it said building laterals and connections as that title, and now it should be sewer laterals. Again, many times as you go through this, you'll see where the original text referred a lot of this stuff to the city engineer, and to that current operations is that it's usually Mandy and I, but she's here on a full-time basis, so it only makes sense to authorize her as well. We both do it jointly. As we were discussing this yesterday in the staff meeting, on first readings we can make some edits, and that's part of what the handout is. I'll get to you in a few minutes, but any revisions have to be made. We have to have the final product to you for the second reading. So what I just want to point out where those corrections or edits need to be made. If you'll look on page 40, middle of the page on item 8, twice there in the first sentence, and then it says building sewer, that should be sewer lateral. You don't see that correction, I caught it later. And then right at the end of that paragraph, it says discharge to the building sewer or sewer lateral. Just add the word or sewer lateral. I've got these noted. Mandy is the one that did all the typing of this, and she and I went through this, and she, based on the council, if you approve this with these amendments or other corrections, we'll get those corrections made and get it to you for your next council meeting. So that was item H, just changing first line building sewer to sewer lateral, and then just add or sewer lateral at the end of that particular paragraph. Then, if you will skip over to page 45, basically this middle section dealt with billings and so forth, and I had stayed away from it. But as we took this through the Public Utilities Commission last week, when you get to the bottom of page 45, Denise had noted that the debt service charge is no longer $5, or there was something else. It's later on. It's a connection fee that's at the bottom of 47, but it doesn't make any difference. Basically, when we get into this billing, a lot of them were calling out a cost. Well, we weren't keeping up. We'd have to be modifying this chapter every time, every year. What I handed out to you is the City of Chisholm billing rate, or rate schedule. And every year you adopt what the new rate schedule is. So what you see at the bottom of that is language that I suggested, and whether it's each year or annually, Brian has a better handle on that. Maybe annually is better because it's shorter, unlike me. But we may want to include that phrase or some modification thereof. So just starting on item C, what my suggestion would be is, it says debt service charge. I would insert the word monthly at that point. So a monthly debt service charge, comma, and then use that phrase, which refers to that rate. The same thing happens on page 46. 6, on paragraph D, I would cross out the of $18.27 per month, just cross that out. But right before the word charge, just before you cross that out, again, I would add monthly. After charge, put in the comma, and then put in the same phrase. The same thing happens, down in item D1, it shows, a basic user charge. I would cross out of the dollar amount at $11.88 per 1,000 gallons. After charge, put in a comma, again, insert that phrase. The same thing happens, in the second sentence of that same D1, a basic user charge, cross out of $10.97, again, reinsert that same phrase. Down, in item 2, you'll see twice in item D2, we say 25, cross out of $25.59 per 1,000 gallons. And insert that same phrase. And in that second sentence, you see I cross out of $25.59 per month. Again, reinsert that phrase. And then if you'll skip to the bottom of page 47, is where we first noticed it, that turn on charge, cross out in the sum of $20, it's now $35, but just reinsert that phrase right there, so. Brian, can I ask a question each year or annually? Which do you think is more appropriate? Put you on the spot.
It's gotta refer, he's referring to that little,
I always prefer annually, Mayor, but they're interchangeable.
Yeah, I thought I had each year, but annually was shorter, yeah, shorten my sermonettes.
Could I ask a question?
Certainly, please.
Okay, so you're gonna take the amount out, so then each year when we set these rates, does this get mailed to every citizen? So, cause if they read the policy, they won't see the number going forward, so they'll need,
They'll need to refer to that.
so I think we should make sure this is mailed out to them
Or at least
after
on our
we set it.
website, or however you deem necessary.
Otherwise, they won't know.
was that an item on our website?
This,
I'd have to
I don't
go
know.
and see if it is.
but if we're gonna take all the numbers out, then we need to make sure they,
The numbers will show up there, it was just a matter of such, we didn't have to every year start republishing this whole chapter 53.
right,
It would just automatically be updated, and this would reference back to that.
yeah.
Yeah, we'd
most
have to
current
change,
version.
we'd have to change the ordinance every year if we
Yeah.
don't refer
Well,
to
I
this
get that.
document, so.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, I'm just saying, if someone reads this going forward, they're not gonna see any numbers. So they're gonna need to have the
Or it
rate
could
sheet,
be, it could be an appendix.
yeah, probably just include it underneath, I imagine.
Yeah, it could be put in there.
I think I've noted all the other changes by underlining or something, they're pretty much the same repetition as what you saw earlier. If you go to page 53, right at the bottom of that page, under section 53.35, the only correction there is we added or the city building inspector. That cross out inspector, and that should be the building official to be consistent with what's in the definitions.
So that F and G on that page 53, that's really the heart of this thing on what the primary change of the ordinance.
Right.